let's go to the next segment of today's episode before jumping to reading your comments. I see you guys are dropping in with good comments, good questions, and good old saludos. This next news affect us in the US directly. And this is something that I started writing and saying on this channel very early, probably like 2 years ago. China is trying to use Latin America as a proxy to spy and attack the US. When I say attack, let's not think about an armed attack with armies and shit. When I say attack, it's probably by poisoning with fentanyl, by poisoning with fake news, by spying in the US and setting up some of these illegal prisons in the country for Chinese dissidents, right? How do we know this? Well, first of all, China, when Trump was elected in the US, and he kind of like threatened to close trade with Mexico and several other countries in Latin America that are being called dictatorships, communist or socialist dictatorships like Nicaragua, Venezuela, and Cuba. China saw an opportunity. China started putting business in Latin America since Trump was president and continued all the way up until the Biden administration. The amount of money that China has invested in Latin America overpasses the amount that the US have invested in Latin America for 2 times. So China is investing twice the money that the US has been investing in Latin America. Remember, guys, money is king. If China is the one building bridges to help the trade between South American countries, if China is the one setting up infrastructure for communications, they earn not only the friendship of several countries in Latin America, but they also earn decision on telecommunications. They earn decisions on transporting routes. They earn basically another country free to operate whatever they want to operate. This is why some of the fentanyl is reaching out through South America into Mexico. This is why a lot of money made by criminal organizations, not only from drug trafficking, but from a lot of other illegal activities like illegal mining, et cetera, it's getting laundered in China. This is why they also have earned turf in most of the territory in South America that has lithium deposits. Well, now, the Wall Street Journal is breaking up some interesting news, confirming what I and others have been saying about China's strange closeness to Mexico. Let's read out this story by Warren P. Strobel from the Wall Street Journal. Cuba to host secret Chinese spy base focusing on US. China and Cuba have reached a secret agreement for China to establish an electronic eavesdropping facility on the island in a brash new geopolitical challenge by Beijing to the US, according to US officials familiar with highly classified intelligence. An eavesdropping facility in Cuba, roughly 100 miles from Florida, will allow Chinese intelligence services to scoop up electronic communications through the southeastern US, where many military bases are located, and monitor US ship traffic. Officials familiar with the matter said that China has agreed to pay cash-strapped Cuba several $billions to allow it to build the eavesdropping station, and that the two countries had reached an agreement in principle. The revelation about the planned site has sparked an alarm within the Biden administration because of Cuba's proximity to the US mainland. Washington regards Beijing as its most significant economic and military rival. A Chinese base with advanced military and intelligence capabilities in the US's backyard could be an unprecedented new threat. While I cannot speak to this specific report, we are well aware of and have spoken many times to the People's Republic of China's effort to invest in infrastructure around the world that may have military purposes, including in this hemisphere. John Kirby, spokesman for the National Security Council, said, "We monitor it closely, take steps to counter it, and remain confident that we are able to meet all our security commitments at home, in the region, and around the world." U.S. officials described the intelligence on the planned Cuba site, apparently gathered in recent weeks, as convincing. They said the base would enable China to conduct signals intelligence known in the espionage world as SIGINT, which could include the monitoring of a range of communications, including emails, phone calls, and satellite transmissions. What's new? The Chinese embassy in Washington had no comment. Cuba's embassy didn't respond to a request for comment. Officials declined to provide more details about the proposed location of the listening station or whether construction had begun. It could be determined what, if anything, the Biden administration could do to stop completion of the facility. The U.S. has intervened before to stop foreign powers from extending their influence in the Western Hemisphere, most notably during the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. The U.S. and the Soviet Union came to the brink of nuclear war after the Soviets deployed nuclear-capable missiles to Cuba, prompting a U.S. Navy quarantine of the island. There's a bunch of background about those deals and the whole situation in Cuba. Well, the article asks a legit question. What can the Biden administration do, right? If anything? Well, they can do a lot. They can get closer to the Latin American countries. They can, for once, start listening to the requests for aid and help to the Latin American countries, something that most of the Republican administrations will not do because they are probably more conservative in the terms of getting closer to socialists or communist governments, which I understand, of course. I mean, you cannot be friends with a dictatorship, right? But at the same time, if you close communications, if you close listening to the people in Latin America, someone else will do. This is the exact same thing happening in Mexico with Mexican criminal organizations, right? No, the government wouldn't listen to these rural communities. Well, the cartels are going to step in and they're going to provide, and they're going to earn the trust and fidelity of these residents, right? Same thing is going to happen with Cuba, not only with Cuba, with Nicaragua, and probably with Mexico. AMLO, Mexico's president, has been really close to the Chinese government. They recently celebrated like some sort of holiday, Chinese holiday, the embassy in Mexico City. Huge party, probably packed with China's lobbyists trying to set up shop in Mexico. Why? Well, because as the same article states, they want to set up a listening station in Cuba because it's really close to Florida. Now, for the same reason, they will probably want to set up something right on the border. Why? Because this border, at least, the border of Ciudad Juarez and El Paso, Texas, is really close to Port Bliss, one of the biggest ports in the U.S., right? So I think there is a lot that this administration or the next one upcoming can do to probably reduce the chances of getting spied on until it's too late, before it's too late. Because right now we have the fentanyl crisis that, of course, it originated in the U.S. It was absolutely the U.S. handing prescriptions like if there were candies all over for several years. That was the first cause of this epidemic. But someone filled in. Who filled in? Mexican cartels and the Chinese government, because they both have an interest in. The Chinese government has a geopolitical interest, while the Mexican drug cartels have an economic interest, right? So I think there's a lot you can do as an administration, and we need to ask this administration, you need to put more money in Latin America. You need to put more attention in Latin America. Probably stop sending all this fucking money to Ukraine and reroute that money and those resources to your neighbors. Latin America, you need them as allies, right? This is what I think, guys. I would love to hear what's your take on it, because I think this could be absolutely dangerous, could be out of hand pretty soon. This thing, I mean, we already have TikTok, right? That it's getting banned on several different levels of top US officials. Why? Because they feel, probably someone knows in reality, that it is a Chinese tool to spy upon US based data. If they set up this stuff, that I'm pretty sure they will do, if it isn't there already in Cuba, well, they're going to be listening to a lot of secrets that the US government doesn't want China or any other government to have.